It's funny because when you're on a tech fucking podcast, when someone says Steve, it's like Steve Jobs, but this is
Just Irwin.
Steve Irwin.
I could just imagine him with a koala or something.
He was just, man, he exuded passion, like raw passion for what he did. Like he just fucking loved nature. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, again, in this like world where we're all driven by our head, we're all in our head all days, we're stressed out. It's like that man
Just loved it.
he just fucking, it came from here. Do you know what I mean?
This is Will O'Brien. Let's start off with basically what is Ulysses?
Yeah. At Ulysses, we're building autonomous systems to automate the most critical tasks in our oceans. There is a abundance of things in the ocean today that activities that are too dangerous, too expensive, or too difficult to do. And as a result, they're not being done. And that's having big downstream impacts on the kind of nature, climate, biodiversity side of our oceans, the safety and well-being of them, and a whole lot of other things. So yeah, our first product is a series of autonomous robots for seagrass ecosystem restoration that make the restoration of seagrass ecosystems cheaper, easier, faster, much larger scale. And yeah, that's just like the first step on our kind of broader journey of broader vision of just, I suppose, like, it's very difficult to do things in the ocean and much more difficult than land. And what we want to do, we want to make it as easy to do an activity in the ocean, a critical task in the ocean as it is on land. So yeah, that's our first step towards that.
Yeah, and before like hearing about Ulysses, I had literally never heard the term seagrass like in my entire life. What is seagrass? Why do
I think this is a sign that you're onto a good startup when you're coming to meetings and you're
no
telling
idea what
them
it is?
about something that they've never heard about before, and they're like, holy shit. And I think that's actually kind of been some of the magic in the start of Ulysses, is like we have started working in a domain that most people, they've never heard of this plant when we started telling them about it. If someone told you that there was a plant that is one of the best in the world at removing carbon, 35 times better than a rainforest, it's 10 times more abundant in the oceans than coral reefs, and they've never heard about it, you'd be like, And that was us like 2 years ago when we started this journey. We don't come from like seagrass biology expert backgrounds by any stretch of the imagination. Like I grew up by the sea. Like I grew up by the seaside in the southwest of Ireland, but wasn't an expert in it. But yeah, sorry, to answer your question about seagrass. Yeah, so it's this wonder plant. It's incredibly good at removing carbon. It's also so it holds seagrass sediments hold about 20% of the carbon in the ocean. The ocean is the world's largest natural carbon sink. And if we lose the seagrass ecosystems, then we lose this massive deposit, these gigatons of carbon. So, that's one downstream effect if we lose our seagrass ecosystems at the rate we're losing them today. Another downstream impact is the impact on fisheries, right? So 3 billion people rely on fisheries as their
source of food,
primary source of protein. 1 billion is their primary source of income, and seagrass is one of the most important ecosystems for the health of the fisheries. It's where small fish go in to hide from larger predators. It's where other fish go in to lay their eggs. It's what we would call a scaffold species, right? It creates a support structure for a healthy ecosystem. So without seagrass ecosystems, goodbye fisheries. So people around the world we've been losing all of our ecosystems at an insane rate, for the last 50, 100 years, 200 years in some instances. Oceans has been particularly negatively impacted, and we've been losing these seagrass ecosystems all around the world, and people have been trying to bring them back. But the way, the state of kind of ecosystem restoration in the ocean is like, it's kind of like at the level of people doing a bit of gardening in their back garden, right? Like it's like small scale projects,
it's
all
not industrial.
manual. It's not like agriculture, right? Yeah. And like that's what we want to do. We want to build the agricultural machinery to enable this like radical scale up of the restoration of ocean ecosystems. And one thing we talk about a lot internally here is like, okay, there was a period in human history where we were saying we're going to have too many people. We have to stop growing the population. We're going to run out of food. Um, guys, we got to stop having kids. Like, stop having kids. We got to stop growing the economy. And people were panicking, right? And then a technological revolution came along. The agricultural revolution, outputs went up, and all of a sudden we could keep growing, and the panic was over. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly the same place we are today, right? People are like, stop having kids. We need to stop growing the economy. That's what a lot of these like mainstream environmentalists, who we very much, don't align ourselves with, like to say. But the answer is like, through things like restoring ocean ecosystem, drawing down like a vast amount of more carbon per annum, bringing these ecosystems back, we can continue to grow the world economy. We can continue to have kids. We can continue to grow the pie. And so we offer this automated seagrass restoration service to our main customers, our governments. Governments are the main ones responsible for the restoration of this ecosystem, and we can just do it at a faster time horizon, larger projects, and for a fraction of the cost of manual methods, which is mainly just done by hand and divers.
Yeah, I'd want to like, so I know that the first like the start of this was someone going and like I think doing like a surfing day or something.
Yeah.
So what was the first like month of people going down, well, all four of you going down a rabbit hole and kind of
Yeah.
discovering it individually?
Yeah. It was like standard, like just like four lads getting nerd sniped on a topic, and we have started a company. It happened really quickly, to be honest. Jamie, one of my co-founders, he's a very avid surfer, and he was surfing and met a marine biologist, and she told him about seagrass. Right, how brilliant it was, great. But then she was working on a restoration project, and she was complaining about how difficult it was to restore this ecosystem, and how expensive it was, and like how it wasn't effective, and it was small scale. And he was working on drone delivery at the time. And he was like, he didn't know much about subsea, autonomous underwater vehicles, but he was like, I think you could do something here. And then he picks up the phone to Akil. Akil is a guy who, one of our other co-founders, a guy he worked with in that drone delivery company. I had been friends with Akil since college. Akil picked up the phone to me. Akil also picks up the phone to Cullum, one of his childhood friends who was working in Red Bull Formula One team at the time. And all of us buzzed on it in different ways. I was looking at the commercial side. The guys were maybe looking at more at the engineering and the science side. And group chat made like the following week. It was like, oh my God, like, why is nobody doing this? Why is nobody talking about this? Like, there's companies being built to use drones to plant forests on land. Like, why is nobody doing this in the ocean? Like, this seems like a no-brainer, especially when the plant is 35 times better at removing carbon, and when the restoration activity, the cost of planting it, is about like 10 times more expensive than planting an acre of forest, like an acre of seagrass. Ecosystem restoration is the most expensive form of ocean ecosystem restoration, more than corals, more than mangroves, more than anything.
Is that just with like current technology, and you can like
manual methods? Yeah, all of them on manual methods.
Yeah, and so how does that work? Like, so you guys are going to be using machines, but historically people have just like manually planted seagrass.
So how you plant seagrass is similar to how you plant regular grass. You take a seed, you find a place to plant it, you go plant it, or you can take a seedling from you could do a transplant, or you can grow it in a nursery and you plant it. But basically, you're taking some planting unit. You're putting it typically in an area, it's restoration, right? So restore where it once was. So we know through maps where seagrass used to be, and we're going to those areas and reintroducing plant material, and letting kind of like, nature like do its thing then after that. So we use seed-based restoration. So we, a plant follows like typically an annual cycle when it's playing ball, and it'll fruit, and then we'll collect the fruits, and then we'll take the seeds out of the fruit, and then we'll plant the seeds, and then we'll come back with the same system a few months later and monitor it for growth. And that's how seagrass restoration happens.
Yeah, I know. So you said like your three other co-founders are like the technical guys, and you're more like a business-facing person. For you,
ideas guy,
resident ideas guy, perfect. So what was the like experience for you figuring out, how to like sell this and make this a commercially like viable company?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of had experience in doing something similar before. Before my first like startup experience out of college was working as the first hire in a European scooter sharing operator, where I was just fresh out of college, done like an economics and maths degree, and was tasked with like selling shared e-scooter schemes to governments in Ireland, the UK, Spain, Poland. It was great. Scaled a team of 30, 35 people, sold the company, 7 figures
And
in
that was Zip,
revenue.
right?
That was it.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was good. Like I came in to that company in May of 2020, June 2020. The laws in the UK changed 2 weeks before. I hired like 3 interns that summer, and me and 3 interns won contracts in like 7 cities against like Bird and Lime and all these types. And
Well,
off
how'd you guys win against those competitors?
uh like we we apply we so a lot, so like yeah, we were up against Bird and Lime and these companies that were like, we had like maybe raised I think 200K at that point, and we were all on like no money, like just not great salaries, like and interns, like none of us had any experience in scooters. Actually, none of us had any professional experience. Like full stop.
Sounds like a startup.
And then like there's like seven, 5 locations to begin with, but it grew to 7 locations across the UK that chose us as their operator. I think again, it just went down to like understanding like what did these local areas need, what did they want, like what were the local requirements for an e-scooter scheme. And we wrote a ton of, we applied to every single RFP that went up that summer. So what happened was the UK government legalized e-scooter sharing schemes, and we were like quick to respond. You had all these big, Bird was a bloated company at this time, right? Like this 2020 ZERP, they're hiring like crazy.
Weren't they
Everyone was
raising
like
it like a 2 billion valuation or something?
quickest company to 1
Yeah.
billion, yeah. And they just weren't adapting very well to work from home, and like they weren't like, again, they were just getting bloated. And then like Ford Motor Company had a player in the race, and they were all just working like 9 to 5 hours and stuff, and like whereas we were doing like 100+ hours a week working out of the founder of the company, his family owned a hotel, so we were just working out of this like unused hotel, just like grinding out like application after application, RFP after RFP, with like
How many do you think you submitted?
I'd say we submitted about 40 that summer. I'd say there was 40 cities that went looking for e-scooter schemes, and we landed like 7. And we became like a top 5 player in the UK, and like off nothing, and then we raised another round off the back of that. But so I had like, that was a really good experience in just like graft, hard work, like
Building something.
yeah, and just like selling to government, and something that is new. However, there was kind of a template there because Bird and Lime had done it before, whereas like, as you said, you've never heard of seagrass before. So when we came to this party, like, that was 2 years ago, we started thinking about it, like 18 months ago when we started working on it. And then did a fundraising around like about like November, October 2023, 2024, 23, yeah. And kind of got stuck in then. I mean, it's like these are all like first of a kind deployments of this technology, so we have been having to think through like, what does our go to market motion look like, and that's it's unique in some ways. It's like this weird three-sided thing where there's us, the technology provider, you have the implementation partner, like a local biologist or scientist that really understands the locality, and then you have like the the kind of sponsor or the funding partner, so maybe like the Western Australian government or something like that. And that's three-sided kind of like it's nearly like the Spider-Man meme, like it's like but in like
but it works.
It works, yes, it works. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun a lot. But a big focus of ours is like the science, right? The science, and finding scientists and getting them excited about what we can do. Like I think one of the things I'm most proud of at Ulysses is our company had been around for like, we spoke at the World Seagrass Conference this year. They gave the most attended talk at the entire conference. We had a room overflowing with people. We had been in this field for like a year, right? Like at this point, and it was in
And
Naples.
how many people like came to this
200
conference?
plus
Okay.
people
Okay.
at our talk. At the conference itself, like maybe like 500, 400, 500. So like
So
most people,
significant.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So and we had only been working in this space like a year at that point. So and I think it's because they do see where we're coming from, like that. Where our message is like, we need to radically scale this up. It shouldn't be like this small scale thing. We want to make it cheaper and easier to do these large scale projects. So yeah, yeah, that was fun.
I'd be curious. So I've only heard of two other companies that have the like same number of co-founders as you guys, and that's like DoorDash and Ginkgo Bioworks.
Mhm.
And so what, like, how did you guys decide to have four co-founders, and what's that experience been like?
I mean, look, like I'd love to sit here and say like everything here is like well thought out and there was method to the madness, but man, like it was a group chat. You know what I mean? Like it was like um like it makes sense. Like as in like in the first instance, the reason we went for four was because everyone brought a different skill set. Like we have distinct capabilities. Me on like the commercial government sales side. We have like, another co-founder very heavy on like electronic engineering, embedded systems. Another two like very good on mech. One having done like full systems designs of satellites, drones, all sorts. Another one with deep actual ML experience, working with Red Bull, and also like hydrodynamics research background. So there was like all these like different compatibilities. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like the midwit meme as well. It's like we didn't big brain it at all. It was like made a group chat and we're like,
You guys were
we're
just like all down to start.
just like dudes
Why
rock,
not?
like let's just
Dudes
do
rock.
it. Dudes rock, like just let's do it. Like and yeah,
That
that
was the
was
founding strategy. Just dudes rock.
dudes rock. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's midwit. Like it's like the midwit thing. Like yeah, like I'm not like yeah. But it worked. It was working. Yeah.
Clearly. How did you get the first? I think you like came out of stealth with like $1 million in revenue. And who were those first few customers, and how
Mm.
did you get them?
Yeah. So yeah, last year did 1 million in revenue. We'll probably like double or triple that again now this year. I think for me, coming from like the world of scooters to this is like biggest learning has been um uh the tealism uh competition is for losers. So true. Like that scooter world, there was like whatever 10 plus companies trying to compete in this market, all had the exact same scooter from one of two suppliers, and competition, there
Just
just was no
everywhere.
differentiation.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, it hurt my soul working in that, because I was telling these cities, this is why we're different, this is the zip difference. And undoubtedly there were areas of differentiation. However, in like in a sense to like
The
what we're
real service of getting people from place A to place B is
yeah,
just the exact same,
it's
pretty
just the
much.
same thing with a different color and a different 4 letter word, like it was like, oh, instead of zip it's bird, like they were all 4 letter words. That was the hilarious thing about it. Like
No, it was ZIPP.
yeah, exactly. But so now what we're doing, we're like 10 to 100 times better than the alternative.
Is there any competition in this? Because I've never heard of a company doing this, and I also don't really
Yeah.
understand why no one else is doing this. Because
Well,
if
it's
it
difficult,
is
and it's not sexy. It's not like, seagrass wasn't in Finding Nemo, like it's like not this, like this is like it's not like
AI generated pictures.
yeah, like it's difficult to get AI to generate pictures of seagrass. Like it's yeah, I don't know. There is like there is like projects ongoing to automate it, but nobody like on the scale that or has achieved as much as we have. And nobody has like really gotten out into the field on the scale that we have. But yeah, how did we get those first ones? I think honestly it was finding really good partners as well. Like the people, like I'm so grateful to Professor Gary Kendrick in the University of Western Australia. Like beyond belief. He took a bet on us early on when we were just like four Irish lads on a Zoom call being like, we think you can make seagrass restoration way more efficient. And then he was like, can you come out next week? It's planting season. And we just we flew out there. Two of the lads went out there,
Just flew to Australia.
flew to Australia,
Fantastic.
and planted some seagrass with a mechanical planter, not like a robotic one, but just to test the planting method. And then I think he saw, okay, these guys are legit. They're actually like passionate about it. And so like we got lucky with like a good partner there, and that's become a big project for us. And yeah, other great partners as well in our other like areas like Florida and Virginia. We have amazing partners there. And so I think that's been very helpful. Again, like I'm saying, this kind of three-sided deal that we have. So I think that was it. But honestly, I think having a very just playing in domains where there's no competition is just so critical. Like it's just like,
Why do so many people tackle things that like the unit economics don't make sense, whereas this seems to definitely work if you can like figure out the technology?
well, I mean, people go after things that when the unit economics don't make sense because there does tend to be like this like order of magnitude reduction in unit economics if you can click some things right or at scale. So, um, what do you mean?
I don't know. Like I've heard of a lot of like kelp companies
Mm.
that I don't understand how they can make money. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. Uh, yeah, we look, we are all here at Ulysses very passionate about our oceans and like the state of them. Like it's what we work on all day, is trying to have oceans that are thriving in biodiversity, clean water, um, abundant fish stocks for the next generation, drawing down carbon. Like agree with all those things 100%. Um,
I'd
so
I'd be curious, like if you guys completely succeed, how much like seagrass is there today in the world, and then
yeah.
how much will there be in like 15 years?
Yeah, we could probably double like the amount of the seagrass coverage, and we could probably satisfy like 10% of the world's need uh, for 2050 carbon removal. Which, if you could do that, and if we were selling credits at 150 a ton, that would be like $1.5 trillion. 10 gigatons is what we need. So 1 gigaton multiplied by $150 a ton would be a $1.5 trillion business by 2050. That's if we go down the route of selling credits on the restored meadows. And in an ideal, that would be like a scenario where you could hold on to all of the revenue. It's not likely the avenue we're going to go down. Like when we started this business, we were thinking that we were going to do like restore the ecosystems and then sell the credits and use that to finance more project development in the oceans is difficult because it's owned by government. Whereas if you want to like restore a rainforest, right? You just buy the land or rent the land off
And just like plant the trees.
a landowner and you give them money and they'll give it to you.
Mm.
Whereas with government, like it's more of a, well, what are you going to do? It's not like money doesn't like talk in the scenarios, right? You have to get permits and stuff. So that adds like that extends the project timeline, and we realized like actually people are just willing to pay us to plant grass, not to develop the project and then sell the credits. Like governments would just pay us to plant grass for them. So we opted more for that model, and also we saw that really the opportunity for our business is being this like general purpose robotics platform for the ocean and automating more critical tasks. Like you see this in and like all these humanoid startups, right? The humanoid form factor will not translate to the ocean. Humans are not evolved for the ocean, right? So therefore you need another form factor for doing autonomy in the ocean and automating way labor and other critical tasks. And yeah, so that's where like our platform, which is a surface vehicle integrated with an underwater vehicle with the ability to carry robotic payloads or run models on the edge, is naturally, and it's very low cost, meaning you can scale it up and cover large areas at a fraction of the cost of traditional unmanned systems. So that they're like some of the key innovations in our platform is fraction of the cost, of traditional unmanned systems platforms in the ocean. Much cheaper than any other. Our underwater vehicle and our surface vehicle are both cheaper than and offer the same functionality as anyone else on the market. And secondly, they're integrated surface vehicle, underwater vehicle. The underwater vehicle can go into the bed of the surface vehicle and then be transported. That's not a common functionality in unmanned systems in the ocean. And that gives you full XYZ access to the ocean. And then when you strap on the ability to run robotics on the edge, that gives you not only that gives you read and write capabilities as well. Right. So you can a lot of people are just doing like read capabilities on the ocean. They're just like reading and they're scanning and they're taking
They
in
collect
data.
data, but they don't actually do anything.
Right. They can't physically manipulate. And that's big. When you can physically manipulate things, then it's like, okay, there's like 10 billion years spent on commercial diving. It's like if you can add a manipulator arm, you can start chipping away at that market, or building bespoke payloads like we've done for seagrass. So
And isn't one of the things that you might be able to do like help the Coast Guard catch drugs?
yeah, so like the platform, as I said, it's extremely low cost and it's dual domain, meaning that you can see what's going on the surface, you can see what's going on beneath, and if you need to, you can do an intervention. You can send a UUV to do what you need to do. And yeah, like the seagrass restoration business is like where we've begun and it's where we've started and it's growing fast. And we have a big pipeline for deals this year that we're going to close out over the next few months and continue to grow. But again, the big vision for us is to be the like autonomy platform in the ocean. And yeah, like who spends a ton of money in the ocean? Who is doing really critical stuff? Coast Guard, Navy. I think Coast Guard are a very interesting one. Like they're really like actually one of the unsung heroes here in the US. Like when people think of armed forces, like they just think of
The military.
military.
Like Air Force, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Coast Guard every day out there intercepting drugs, preventing, doing search and rescue, keeping borders safe and protected. Yeah, like we're seeing this across the Navy and the Coast Guard. Huge labor shortages. Like the Coast Guard are retiring ships every year because they don't have enough people to staff them. And this is a common problem like around the world on the ocean. Like
There's just not enough people.
not enough
that
people
wanna join.
to yeah. So you need like again, there's a labor shortage. You need to again like same argument that you have on land for humanoids, applying for this for the ocean, automating, and taking off some of the roles that you would have a person maybe on board a 70-foot cutter doing, and putting them and building a purpose-built autonomous system to do that. Yeah, so yeah, maritime. This area is called maritime domain awareness. It is one of the we have a new product launching this year. We'll be sharing more on it later this year. And yeah, this is coming soon.
Coming soon. I want to know like what has been the most difficult moment since starting the company?
Probably like having tests in the field and then them like not going well. Like there's like that like famous photo of like Musk with like the
The just exploded rocket just
all around him.
in the
We've had moments like that. And like look, I'm not day to day working on the engineering thing, but the lads are fucking killing themselves to work at an insane pace. And then it just takes one, in hardware, it just takes one thing to go wrong and your test mission isn't working. And it's fine because we build on it, like, and we get better. But those are tough days when lads have been like cranking for ages on like a development direction, and then you go out into the field to test it and it doesn't work. It's like that's a bummer. So I'd say they're the harder days
when you just work for months and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. When you're all like super excited for like next phase of testing, it doesn't work. But then it's grand because then the next week you go back out with, or the next day you go back out with a fix. But yeah, you're so excited for testing or whatever. So yeah, I mean, we came to this field not with a naivety that has actually been very helpful. I think like none of us had worked on autonomous underwater vehicles previously, and we developed a platform that is like 1/10 the cost of like incumbents, and that was just kind of out of like maybe a bit of hubris and naivety, but like the guys have been able to make it work, and we just kind of came in being like, well, we plant grass on land, therefore we should just be able to repurpose agricultural machinery and make it work underwater, and kind of brought that model. And then like we started looking at so we actually thought we were just going to build the machinery like for the planting and the collecting of seeds. And then we like looked at the unmanned systems market and like some of the offerings there, and they were just like, it was like 500K for like one of the vehicles we wanted to buy, an underwater vehicle to like carry our, and we were like, man, that's like a quarter of our like seed round, like pre-seed. Like we are like, no. And then like, not even messing, over like 3 or 4 days, Jamie, like our CTO, like just like locked in. He was like flying back to Scotland for something, like locked in on a flight, and just like designed a platform from scratch, an AUV platform from scratch. And then we're like turned around like 4 days later. We're like, what? Like, like he's a freak in the best way. I love him. But and then we just went into building, and like we were like, shit, this like all works. Like, and he just like the typical kind of like Elon thing, like delete things that are not
Yeah.
worthwhile. And
Do you guys follow the same? I forgot exactly what
not
the
really,
real.
no, the
No, okay.
algorithm or whatever, no, not
Yeah.
really. Like I think yeah, I don't know how that guy's brain, Jamie's brain, works. He's amazing though. I love working with like these guys. Like it's,
What do you think the like best thing about working with them is?
oh man, we have so much fun. We have the best crack ever. Like we're like our company culture is just very oriented around work hard, play hard. Like, like it's like, but like nobody here takes themselves seriously. Everyone's like mocking each other. Like it's very like,
But in a kind way.
yeah, it's kind of like a bunch of like, I grew up with like two brothers, so I'm very used to this like mocking each, and like our Irish culture is very like nobody takes themselves too seriously, right? Like, um 700 years of British oppression would make yourself make yourself not take yourself too seriously. We like to have fun, we like to have a drink, like we like to have the crack, and like this is like that group here. There's just, yeah, a lot of, well, yeah.
How does that translate to, I think you guys are going to be hiring quite a few people over the next year or
Yeah,
so. What's your,
we made 3 hires in the last few weeks. Yeah.
yeah, what is your like process for finding people that will fit with this culture?
So we made an amazing hire last year for a founding engineer, and the guys knew him previously. They'd worked with him previously, right? Dylan, he's phenomenal. Um, and so that was just like from network. Another one of the 3 hires we just made again was from network. Yeah, we've made 2 other hires there. I think 2 very critical things, like both of the people we've hired, the other people that we didn't know previously that we hired, they came to us. Like we were just like publicly posting, and I was shit posting on Twitter, and I think one of them saw like the job description as a result of that, or it got sent to someone or whatever. And anyway, both of them are like, out of the 2 people we hired that we didn't know previous to starting the company, technically insanely competent. Both of them, like both have like stellar records or whatever, and everything they've done, and we're very much hiring for a slope. Like not neither of them, both of them in their 20s. Neither of them have like credentials, let's say, but like they were strong culture fits. Like we could just see them fitting in there. So I think like it's hard to find these people, but I think the main thing is when you're doing hiring is to not compromise on your culture in the early days. If you have like and it's hard, like cultures, I actually hate the word of it, to be honest, because it's like, I mean, look, it's a word for it, but like, it's vibes based, right? Like it's vibes based. Like just like listen to your
Like,
gut.
do they fit the vibe?
Yes, it's all it's gut, right? Like I honestly think like intuition is like so powerful. You need to listen to it. Like if I look back, the worst decisions I've made, it's when I've ignored my gut in favor of
Like data or something.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
interesting. So it's kind of like the Bezos thing where he's like the most important decisions may be informed by data, but they have to be like from the heart.
Yeah, I think it's different. I think there's like two types of founders, right? Head and heart founders,
Mm.
right? Like, and you can broadly put them in. You can put like the Steve Jobs into the world of like heart-based founders, and like Bezos is the typical head founder. Now, Elon is kind of like unique because he can also catalyze this kind of like heart and like, you know, catalyze this vision for going to Mars, but also like he's, you know, one of their best IC engineers or something like that. You know, like but he's like technically incredibly strong. I definitely put myself more into like the heart-based like founder camp, and like and even like internally you can ask the guys about this, but they have their own like vibes-based engineering philosophy, which I won't try to explain.
Vibes-based engineering philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but yeah, for me anyway, like used for hiring, it's all like intuition based. Or not all, but like it's important to listen to that and not to deny it. Yeah, like I've made hires before that didn't turn out well, and it was because I was ignoring my intuition. So, and yeah, just made bad decisions before, and you, yeah, just don't ignore that intuition. I think I think in a world of like optimize everything, like wearing my Aura ring to like
And data's everywhere.
data's everywhere, like optimize everything. I think that's all bullshit, to be honest. Like I don't like measure my sleep score. I don't like follow a routine. Like I don't like I don't follow a routine. I think routine is so overrated, to be honest. Like when in human history has like do you think cavemen woke up in the morning? It was like 7 a.m. Better fucking go and stare at the sun for 15 minutes before I might cold plunge in the river. Like no, like you base on the day, right? Like you roll with the punches, and you like and yeah, like I definitely think there's this like there's a
Role for data, but it shouldn't override everything.
for sure. Yeah, like let's like balance. Obviously, like I'm not like they're planning 2025 for Ulysses and being like the KPIs for this year are the vibes. You know, like we still have to write investor reports where we give our burn and runway and all this.
You walk in and say our vibes are at all-time highs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You should see the slope.
the KPIs do not like we don't have OKRs for vibes, but like yeah, I it's just not my style. And I think it's a little bit overrated. So yeah, I try to use intuition in business decisions, and I think it works for me.
I'd be curious, who are the people that you look up to the most? I know that Steve Irwin was one when you
Oh,
were a
yeah.
kid.
I still love Steve. Like we have a photo of him over there.
Is it
Framed
that one? Right
yeah,
there?
framed photo of him. Yeah. A little relic to him. Yeah, we love Steve. Rest in peace to a king. I think why Steve, that's funny because when you're on a tech fucking podcast, when someone says Steve, it's like Steve Jobs, but this is
Just Irwin.
Steve Irwin.
I could just imagine him with a koala or something.
He was just, man, he exuded passion, like raw passion for what he did. Like he just fucking loved nature. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, again, in this like world where we're all driven by our head, we're all in our head all days, we're stressed out. It's like that man,
Just loved it.
he just fucking, it came from here. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think if we can channel some of that here, wow, that's powerful. You can move fast then. You can move, like if you can move with that passion and that so
And you can also move others if you have that passion.
yeah, it's magnetic, you know.
Yeah.
He was so enthusiastic, it was infectious. He got people to care about the environment. He got people to care about nature. He educated people, but like it was all because he was enthusiastic. Yeah, you're right. It was infectious. So I think his passion is something that and like he was cool, and he was just like renegade, you know. Like I like, he was just like at
He
the
was chill
frontier.
being himself.
He was being himself, but he was being himself. That's a big thing. He was being true to himself, but he was also like going off to random places to like look at this type of snake or this type of shark or whatever, and he he was like, there was risk and there was adventure, and I think that appealed to me. And oh man, I still remember the day he died. Like I was so sad, so sad. Remember, I was in my third class, so that means I was fifth, like that would be fifth grade equivalent. So I was like 10, and like remember like being like sad and like not playing with anyone at lunch and being like, "Why are you all so happy?" Like Steve Irwin died. Like I tried to convince my school to have like a vigil for him, and they wouldn't. But yeah, he was a big one for me. Um, just like general role models or like
Whoever, you think of comes to mind.
mm, yeah, and then like naturally your like parents and stuff are like a big inspiration. Both my parents are a big inspiration to me. My mom and my dad in different ways.
Did they
And
push you towards entrepreneurship?
um yes, in different ways. Um my dad was also he was an entrepreneur, and so was my granddad. My granddad on both sides were entrepreneurs. One granddad was a pig farmer, and no pig. He didn't actually. Oh, he pig farmed, sold pigs, had a pub, any odd job. He was like,
He was doing it.
yeah, like 8 kids, typical Irish Catholic family, like looking after, and his wife was a bit ill, so he was kind of like single parent a little bit for 8 kids, and then other side of the family, yeah, my granddad, he was William as well. Actually, funny story about my grand. He was the first like person to bring in I should know if I can say this on the podcast. Fuck
You
it.
got it.
He
Worst
was,
comes to
he
worst,
was,
we edit it.
he
We're
was the
good.
first person to bring like plastics, or he was like a big plastic importer into Ireland. So they call him Plastic Willie. So
So are you just trying to make up for your past generations like
yeah,
mistakes?
maybe, yeah. He brought cranes into Ireland. He brought like
He was like an importer.
he operated the cranes. He had like bought in the cranes and then like would rent them out, and like just general like for like building roads and stuff like that. He worked on building roads, infrastructure build out in Ireland, and also like he had like about 10 different businesses, lost his shirt in a recession and started another 10 businesses, like just kind of did a bit of everything. A real just like classic.
Just a grinder, relentless guy.
Yeah. Absolute grinder. And so yeah, had that on both sides. And my dad as well, like he has like, yeah, he's got like a social enterprise, and he's started 2 businesses and kind of did his own things. And again, similarly, it's been up and down for him. But so I've always been exposed to it in that way. So that was kind of like maybe like exposure. You see that other people, you see it can be done, and then I think like I did remember I nearly became a vet. So I nearly became a veterinarian. Loved animals and wildlife growing up, and worked in a vet practice in Cork, where I'm from, when I was in secondary school, and then
Was that partially because you just really cared about like and looked up to Steve Irwin?
honestly,
yeah.
it was because what I loved about working in that vet practice was because they were working with they had the contract for the local zoo. So they did exotics. So there was like pictures of cheetahs on the wall, and they were getting call outs to go to the giraffes and like all this. So that was sick. Like, and so I was kind of on this path where I was like, I'm going to be a vet, like going to go to Dublin, study veterinary. But my mum knew as well that like I was doing like, I was in secondary school, I was like selling widgets, like just I was kind of buying shit online, like laser pointers and stuff like that, and I'd sell it in school. I was always kind of like had like a different
arbitrage, and
I always had a scheme to make money. And I think she maybe saw that. No, your mum knows you better than anyone, really, like, and I think she knew that veterinary is extremely tracked, and it caps your upside. And I think she could see that and in me, and kind of gave me a nudge in my like last year of high school, being like, would you think about other stuff, and there was a course, and I my favorite subject in school was maths, and there was just like this very like maybe elite like course in one of the colleges in Dublin, that in the universities in Dublin, that focused on like maths and like finance and economics. And it's like for people generally who go into like, a lot of my class went into banking or like algo trading or something like that afterwards, and she was like, "Oh, what'd you think about that?" And then I was like, "Actually, I love maths," so I was like, "I think you're probably right," and so I did that instead, and that was great because that kind of opened my world to the world of business, and that became. Then I was like, oh, "I'm definitely not doing finance." This is like,
Did you go stray from like deciding not to do finance to zip?
no, I made an early decision, I would say, in university that I was not going to work in finance. No, it was never for me.
Yeah.
Like, maybe flirted with the idea of consulting, but then it just doesn't take a genius to realize that that's just, it
Not
was
the
not
most
it.
meaningful career path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one way of putting it. Yeah.
All right. Is there any good stories that I just didn't know to ask about, but that are really fun?
Few.
Go for it.
I lived with like Buddhist monks before, for a while. I've ended up in a Chinese prison. I worked for a billionaire on Caribbean island.
How'd you get into that?
I nearly got killed once. Which one do you want to do? Like,
Let's do the. I mean, fuck it. It's like four. Let's just go through them.
Oh, okay.
Okay. First, I think the monks.
Yeah, was raised Catholic, and I am Catholic now. However, during college, I did have a brief intermission where I was looking at other religions and was generally agnostic, and was uh, curious to learn more about like Buddhism. So I just started like reading a ton about it, and then I was like, not really getting much out of these books. I want to go live with them. I was like, how do you live with them? You have to go teach them English. Taught myself how to teach English. Emailed a bunch of schools. Emailed a bunch of schools or monasteries in Nepal, and one of them
Responded.
got back and was like, "Yeah, come on in, Mr. O'Brien." And so I went there for a summer and lived with them and taught them English and learned about their religion and did Everest Base Camp while I was there as well. That was nice to notch that one off as well.
Space camp.
Everest Base Camp, like a hike to the
Oh,
base
yeah,
camp
yeah.
of Mount Everest. Yeah. So that was good. That was good crack. I learned a lot there. And formed a solid opinion on Buddhism. Decided not to become Buddhist, evidently. I didn't come back to Catholicism though until like not directly after that trip, but a few years later. But yeah, definitely like learned some interesting things from from those guys.
Buddhist monks.
Yeah.
Let's end it on the billionaires one.
Okay, the billionaire one. So, the richest man in Ireland, or the used to be the richest man in Ireland, was a guy called Dennis O'Brien. No relation, but Dennis set up a large telecoms business in the Caribbean and in Asia Pacific, and so it's the main telecoms company in like Papua New Guinea and Jamaica and Cayman Islands and all these places, and I read in his book that he got his first job by sending a letter to the founder of Ryanair asking to be his personal assistant. So I was like, put down the book, wrote a letter, put in my CV. I was in college at the time. So this was actually the summer before Nepal. And I found out his address and sent him the letter. And I think this is like I think one thing, in cold outbound, that is underrated is a letter. Nobody will ever forget a letter. Nobody gets letters anymore. And like this is AI can't yet at least write letters.
The mailbox is the ultimate inbox zero.
Yes. So if you want to get someone's attention, write them a letter, send them a letter. If you want to get a job at Ulysses, send me a letter. You will infinitely go up in the ranks in who we consider. Yeah, letter writing is incredibly underrated. There's something very human about it. I think the returns to letter writing is only going to go up as more AI slop takes over the internet and we go more offline. And yeah, so I sent that letter, found his address, which was hard to find. I had to ask around, but I had a source and got his personal office letter and sent it to him. A few days later, get a call from an unknown number, and it's him, Dennis, and he's like, "Yeah, love the letter. Not going to give you a PA job though because I traveled so much, and it's just different to Tony Ryan, where Tony Ryan was just based in Shannon or based in Ireland all the time. This guy's like jetting off between all his markets. He doesn't need someone traveling with him. He needs like PAs, but he doesn't need like an assistant in the way Tony did. So and also like I was like 19, so probably like that was probably like another reason he was being kind. But he said, I'll give you a job for the summer. And I worked in the Cayman Islands in that market. And it was hilarious actually when I landed. They all thought I was his son because I had the same surname at the start. I told them after a few days that I wasn't his.
Did that influence his decision? The fact that you guys had the same?
I'm not sure. You'd have to get him on and ask him. He would be a great guest. Dennis O'Brien. Yeah. So that was that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's a perfect place to end it.
Thank you
Sounds
very
good.
much.